welcome to Half the Battle, and welcome, my friends, to the 300th episode. You know, I had one hell of a struggle to come up with a topic for this episode. I just didn't know what to do with it.
So then I thought, why not have it be about a character that the G.I.Joe franchise didn't know what to do with either? So meet Overlord. This figure was released in 1990 with all original body parts. And that's certainly an, eccentric look, isn't it?
Well, gaudy would be a more fitting term.
I mean, he's got frickin' golden pants. And is that a fishnet pattern on his crotch? Hey, I'm not one to kink shame, but regulars at a BDSM club would tell this guy to tone it down a notch. That's not even mentioning the skin-tight shirt. Overlord doesn't miss crunch day at the gym, does he? And once you add the golden shoulder pads and a frickin' monocle, you can conclude he is not a fan of keeping a low profile. It's a unique look though, I'll give him that.
As you may have guessed, his accessories have never seen the definition of the word subtle either.
He's got a golden helmet that kinda reminds me of the sort a Roman centurion has, but from another angle, well, let's not mince words here, it looks like a dickhead. Though going back to that centurion remark, he does invoke the image of a Roman emperor somewhat.
I wonder if that was intentional.
He also came with 2 claws, golden ones of course, that attached to his hands. True story, when I took this figure off the shelf to review it, I found I had given him Cesspool's chainsaw gun thing, thinking it belonged to Overlord. It just seemed to fit the character, you know?
One problem with the figure is that it seems unfinished.
The mesh on his waist is only on the front part, so there's a lack of detailing on the back. But more importantly, there's something about the chest that seems weird, and I blame Zartan for that.
Let me explain.
Overlord's torso looks very similar to Zartan's without the chest piece, so every time I look at it, I feel there should be a breastplate there. Hell, he could use some armor on his back too.
With all of that said, I haven't really told you if I like the figure. Well, I don't dislike it.
They tried to do something different here, which is cool, and the gaudiness is nothing compared to the neon crap that would follow later, but the figure doesn't really do anything for me. It's fine, I suppose, for what it is. And that was the only toy Overlord ever got in the original line.
Hell, it was the only toy he ever got at retail, period.
He did get a second figure in 2006 as part of a convention exclusive set, but I don't have that, so I can't really comment.
This doesn't mean we're through talking about toys though, as Overlord was a vehicle driver.
So meet the Dictator. This vehicle was released with Overlord in 1990 with all original parts. And this thing does not look how I would have imagined it after first seeing the figure.
It looks really subdued. There's not a speck of gold paint on it.
It's a complete contrast with Overlord, in fact. This would be like finding out Lady Gaga drove a Ford Escort or something. Though I am just talking about the color scheme here. The design itself is unique enough. At first glance, it looks like a mini-tank or a souped-up version of the Devastator. And that reclined seat looks very comfortable.
But there's more to it than that.
The front tracks can be moved downwards, and the seat moves on a hinge, so you get an elevated shooting position.
A vehicle that alters its appearance to become more of a threat.
Yeah, I'm very much getting a Mask vibe from this. That line definitely had vehicles that had a hidden elevated firing position. The Wildcat springs to mind.
Hasbro? Ripping off ideas? Why, I never.
Even more Mask-esque is that the seat section can detach and become a flying vehicle. I'm not gonna try that on this one since I'm afraid of breaking it. This is also why I don't like transforming any Transformer that's more complicated than, say, pull-out legs and arms. Sure, the more modern ones have ball joints that'll pop off without damage.
But some of those old Generation 1 toys...
My Jetfire here ain't ever gonna be in jet mode again, is what I'm saying. Anyway, for armaments, the Dictator has got 2 missiles in the back and 2 machine guns up front.
But you know what it doesn't have? Driving controls.
There's no detailing that suggests instruments or a driving wheel or anything, unless those machine gun handles are supposed to double as that. Overall, while not without its flaws, it's a nice little vehicle that doesn't look out of place next to a host of other Cobra weaponry. I wouldn't give it to Overlord though, but to a Motor Viper or a regular Viper or something. Yeah, unlike other small vehicles that came with figures, like say Serpentor's air chariot, which was clearly meant to be only for Serpentor, the Dictator can just be used as a generic Cobra vehicle, and a pretty neat one at that.
With that, it's time to talk about the character, which pretty much means the file card.
He is a power-hungry authoritarian bent on becoming Cobra's supreme ruler. The card speculates that he was a high-ranking Crimson Guard that now wants to seize power.
If that sounds familiar, don't worry, we'll get to it later.
This card is actually pretty unique, as it doesn't just talk about the character, but also about the state of Cobra at the time, probably as a way to justify Overlord's existence in the first place. It says Overlord is the only one with the strength and charisma to reunite all the sinister personalities within Cobra's hierarchy to form a more vicious and dangerous Cobra than ever before. This implies that Cobra has fallen apart into different factions, and there's a power vacuum at the top.
Okay, for that to make sense, you have to look at the toy line in 1990.
There wasn't a Cobra Commander figure that year. Hell, the last one had come out in 1987, and the last Destro in 1988. So, I guess the toy line wanted to try something new with Overlord. This experiment didn't last long, as in 1991 we did get a new Cobra Commander figure.
The whole thing came off as a bit weird.
The card tells us a little more about him. He's more interested in Cobra's treasury than anything else, and he cloaks his true ambitions by talking about returning to traditional Cobra values, whatever the hell those are. As far as other media go, well, he appeared in commercials trading insults with a real-life Sergeant Slaughter.
Nice bunch of losers, reptile breath. Now check out the new Joes.
And the commercials make it look like he's in charge of Cobra at that point.
Despite that, Overlord did not appear in the comics or the cartoon, and that's where I normally end talking about that. But let's dive in and try to answer why he didn't appear in those.
When it comes to the comic, I think the books had already been there and done that. Twice. Cobra Commander's leadership had been usurped by Serpentor and later Fred, the Crimson Guard that shot him and assumed his identity.
So having yet another new character take over Cobra would seem overkill.
No, not that guy. And hell, given that the file card specifically mentions him being a former Crimson Guard, it wouldn't surprise me if Hasbro wanted to replicate the Fred storyline from the comic into the toy line using this character. So my best guess is that they didn't want to do the same thing in the comic all over again, especially since the real Cobra Commander was returning in 1990 anyway.
As far as the cartoon goes, it was just bad timing.
His toy came out 1 year too late, basically. While G.I.Joe the movie had ended with Cobra Commander being a snake, which provided a good exit for the character and left the way open for a new leader in a new cartoon series, unfortunately Hasbro didn't provide a new leader toy in time for the 1989 relaunch miniseries Operation Dragonfire, so Deke just brought back Cobra Commander using his at that point 2-year-old toy. And they just kept the Commander for the rest of the series, even though most other toys and characters from 1990 did appear.
If Overlord had come out just 1 year earlier, there's a good chance he would have been the new big bad in the D cartoon series, making the character a bigger deal.
So that he maybe would have gotten more toys and may have even been put in the comic. Yeah, if he'd been a 1989 character, there's every chance this would have been a main character May review instead of the 300th.
Meaning that this episode is probably the biggest tribute the guy will ever get.
For completeness' sake, I should mention that a version of Overlord did appear in the Devil's Due comic series, a much beefier looking one, and he even killed Chuckles, but he was killed pretty soon himself. Just bringing that up because otherwise people in the comments would point it out anyway.
For a last bit of trivia, other names were considered for the Overlord.
One was Cobra Khan with a C this time, which may have raised some eyebrows over at Mattel. 2 others may have been considered for his real name on the file card, though the released version doesn't have one, namely Braco Dracoman and Carbo Metmornak. Now, if you're clever,
or if you've read the wiki,
you'll realize those are anagrams of Cobra Commander. So, at one point, maybe they considered this the way to sneakily bring back Cobra Commander in the cartoon or comic.
But like I explained, bad timing.
And that was Overlord. Or the Overlord, I don't know. An interesting experiment and an interesting character that didn't work out, mostly due to Hasbro not putting their full weight behind it. Then again, if they had done so, would the fans have accepted a brand new Cobra leader? Given how fond everybody is to this day of Cobra Commander, I don't think so.
Well, I'll see you next time, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing?